You may not know who I am, but you've probably heard my voice before. I played a character called the Arashok in the video game Dragon Age 2. You know. Since we arrived, I have seen nothing but greed and weakness. No order, no goal. You know, while we were recording that, I used to think that voice was the closest to my authentic voice until I heard it in the game and realized I don't sound anything like that day to day. Could you imagine if I did? I'd like to order a Coke Zero with lemon. Every time you do a voiceover audition, they usually include specifications and directions. Sometimes they're at the bottom of the page, sometimes they're at the top of the page, sometimes they're included in the email that the script came along with. Regardless, they are there to help you make decisions about how you're going to audition. Specifications usually refers to the descriptive words and phrases that have to do with the quality of your voice, how you sound. Raspy, nasal, deep, whiny. Directions have to do with the quality of your performance. Conversational, charming, calm, authoritative. The question is, what do you do with them? I learned one way to deal with them from a guy named Granville Van Dusen. He was a popular actor in Los Angeles. In fact, he and I were in The Lion King together for a short time in LA, and he obviously has one of the greatest names of all time. We also had the same voiceover agent. One evening, we were in the dressing room together, and I got a notification on my phone. It was an audition from our agent, and I was reading it, and I started laughing out loud. And Granville said, I said, oh, it's just a voiceover audition from our agent, but the specs and directions are nearly a paragraph long, longer than the script itself. I said, how am I supposed to make all of those specs and directions show up in my audition? And Granville said this, just look for the outlier. Maybe it was just the way he said it, but I thought it was profound. And I said, what do you mean? Granville explained, the way you should handle specs and directions is by first assuming that they want you. Typically, people look at the specs and directions and just start layering all those descriptors on top of their voice. But Granville's idea was different. His idea was to start with your authentic voice. Imagine that the producers and the clients wanted you from the very start. You should assume that they have written every audition just for you. So start there. And then when you look at the specs and directions, you should ask yourself which of those qualities you don't have. Which of them are the outliers? When you find an outlier, you manipulate your voice just enough to satisfy it and leave everything else alone. So for example, if I get an audition, I look at the specs and directions and they say 35 to 55, male, deep voice, warm, some texture. So far, I have all of those and I don't need to change anything. But if the very next spec says British, that's an outlier, and I'll need to manipulate my voice so that now I'm British. But everything else would stay the same. Granville, if you're out there, thank you. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. All right, go book something.